Matt Ridley is the author of many books. His latest is How Innovation Works. It comes out on May 19th. We hope to have him back on to talk about that book a little later on. He can be found at rationaloptimist.com. Matt, welcome to the program. Great to have you.
Glenn, great to be on your show.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, can we just start with, first of all, how are you feeling about the coronavirus now? I mean, you came out I think in March and said, I think this could be real. How are you feeling about the predictions of it and where we're headed?
Well, I still think it's pretty scary. I still think we've got a long way to go. It's going to kill a lot of people. But I think we are likely to crack this problem, to solve it, to find a way out of it, whether it's a vaccine or a cure. At the moment, I think the therapies, the cures are looking more promising than the vaccines in short order. And even if it's just an app that tells you on your phone when you've come close to somebody who had it, plus a lot of testing so that we can really do the contact tracing, then I think we can gradually solve the problem. We may have to live slightly differently for a few months. But I'm optimistic that we will get through this without a huge death toll, but it's already quite a big death toll, and it is a terrible blow to the world economy.
So how do you feel we have balanced the death toll and the world economy? I mean, there is a tipping point that you start to do damage that just is going to cause even more death in the long run if you don't have some commerce going on. Where do you think that, what's the line that you would be looking for, the tripwire, to be able to open things back up?
Well, if you strangle somebody and then you take your hands off their throat, they're fine as long as it's only been 30 seconds. If it's been 3 minutes, then they're not fine. Somewhere in the region of, 3 weeks of lockdown is okay, but 6 weeks may not be, or 12 weeks may not be. I worry that we're getting close to the point where we've got to find a way out of this lockdown. Otherwise, a lot of businesses are going to go bust. A lot of people will have lost their jobs. A lot of the economy will never come back unless we do that in the next few weeks. So in this country, we're locked down for another 3 weeks from a few days ago, so 2.5 weeks from now. But we haven't got a plan for how to ease the lockdown. It can't be all at once. We realize that. We can't have football games and boxing matches with 10,000 people watching, and all that. But if you get schools back, you get some small businesses back, you get shops working again, you get people doing sensible things, you've got the summer sunshine, which is going to help a little bit coming along, etc. Then I'm pretty sure that we can rescue a good chunk of the economy and see us bounce back. But we've got to do it pretty soon. I think we've passed the point where we're doing more harm with the lockdown than the virus is doing. And that's partly, of course, because we've got on top of the virus. We have slowed down the rate of spread. So what looks like disaster is in a way success, if you see what I mean.
Yes, I do. So are you concerned about a rebound? Here in America, everybody's talking about, there really seems to be only two camps, the way the media is portraying it, but it's not true. But it's I don't care if anyone dies, I want money, or I want to keep the economy closed for 18 months for everybody's safety. But that's not realistic. Either of those are realistic. But we're being told by those who want to keep us in lockdown that there could be a real bad rebound if we open up too fast. And I think that's reasonable. But how do we know what too fast is? And are you concerned about a rebound?
Yeah, I think that what we I think you're right. A rebound is possible if we open up too fast. On the other hand, we can't keep the lockdown going so long that we don't risk a rebound at all. Because during the lockdown, we're not creating herd immunity. We're not getting enough people exposed to the virus for it to be able to slow down the spread. So the end of the lockdown has to come with the help of technology, particularly diagnostic testing and tracing, but also better treatment. And I think, if we can just get it so that people are not going to die when they go to hospital because we worked out how to cure them, then I think we can, as it were, take the pain of people catching it, not at a high rate, but with a moderate rate allowed by contact tracing and social distancing and all those sort of things. So I think that's the way to think about it, is a slow easing of the lockdown so that the rebound is copable with, so that the health services can cope with the rebound when it comes.
We're talking to Matt Ridley, author of How Innovation Works. He's from London, thus the delay in our conversation. Let me change the subject just for one quick question here. Why is it that in the UK you would put the word "the" before car, like "Hey, get into the car," but you don't use the word "the" before the word "hospital"? I don't get it. I want to know.
I just noticed that. Yeah, you always say, let's go to the hospital. And we always say, let's go to hospital.
Yeah.
Don't we? Isn't that weird? I don't know why.
It's weird. Let's go to the restaurant. If we're going
to start to accuse each other of mishandling the English language, I'm sure.
Okay. Well, yeah. All right. We'll move on. All right. Let me take you to something that I find also perplexing. Let me take you to something I also find more perplexing than the absence of the word "the" before hospital, and that is I've been watching the BBC and I've been seeing the private industry screaming, "Please let us help with testing," and you, for some reason, will not allow the private sector to help. This is what Germany did it the right way. We didn't even do it the right way. We got bogged down in our governmental, CDC as well. And that's why we screwed up the testing. Germany immediately went to the private sector because, they learned lessons from the past. Why is it that England just will not allow the public sector to get involved in this?
Well, this is a really interesting point, and you're absolutely right. The Germans have a decentralized health system with 28 different health authorities, each of which is going out there and finding whoever can provide it with testing. They don't have their own labs. They don't try and do it in-house. And as a result, they got off to a flying start by getting the private sector involved. The US was slow to do that, and the CDC tried to hold on to a monopoly on the testing, and it quickly did a U-turn and realized that wasn't going to work. The UK was even slower. It is now changing. We are now getting the private sector involved, but it's been a shockingly slow process. And the excuse given by the authorities is that they wanted quality control. They didn't want tests that didn't work being used by people, so they didn't want to order them from people who they couldn't trust. But the real reason was a cultural dislike of the private sector. And I wrote about this 2 years ago. I wrote about the hostility of the national health system to ordering private sector diagnostic tests in a different context. But it's basically saying we don't trust you because you're a for-profit institution and we're not. And that's a shocking way of going on because they buy food and, they don't expect that to be grown on a state farm. So there's no reason not to go out to the private sector. And as a result, the UK, in the middle of March, abandoned testing people with symptoms. Even people who were getting sick were told, don't go and get tested, stay at home. We were only able to test the people who were so sick they got into hospitals. And we promised again and again that we would be doing 100,000 tests a day and 100,000 tests a week or whatever it was, and we kept missing these targets. And it's still happening. And I've been talking to some of the testing companies, and they have horror stories about the procurement process, about the bureaucratic nature of it. So I feel very concerned about this. I think we've mishandled it, that aspect of it. And we're about to do it again. Because with respect to personal protective equipment, PPE, we are being told that no, the public should not use face masks. And that is now in defiance of the World Health Organization advice, as well as most other countries. Mm-hmm. And the cat was let out of the bag yesterday when it emerged that the reason for this advice was because they were worried that if the public bought face masks, there wouldn't be enough face masks for the doctors and nurses. Well,
They did that to
how
they did
markets
this to
work. I
us
think the
here
whole
in
point of it.
America. They did this to us in America, and it was astonishing. And as soon as we had enough face masks for the hospitals, we immediately turned around, and all the press said, "Oh, you know what? They do work for the general public." We knew it in the beginning that they were lying to us. It's astounding that you're going through this now.
I agree, and this is one of the things that we have to revisit at the end of this, because I mean, of course, it's not perfect to put something over your face, but it's bound to be better than
Nothing.
coughing out droplets of virus.
So the last thing I want to talk to you about, Matt, and we really appreciate having you on. We're big fans. Stu, you have to say hello to Stu because he reads everything that you write. So say hi, Stu.
Hello, Matt.
Hi, Stu. Thank you very much.
Great to talk to you. And I will say I'm very excited for the new book. And The Rational Optimist, I consider it a foundational book in the way I think about the world. It's an incredible book, and it's something that if you haven't read, you should go out and get right away.
Thank you very much. I said one thing right at the end of that book,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, right at the end of that book, I say, look, it's going to be a great century. Everything's going to go fine. But of course, I could be wrong. There could be global flu pandemics, I said.
I would love to talk to you further if you have time, on another day about what the world is going to look like and how I know that the famous Fabian socialist window mold the world closer to your heart's desire. This is the kind of thing where people are molding the world, and we don't seem to be thinking that way. We just all want to go back to normal. No, wait, there's some things that maybe this provides opportunity on. For instance, getting rid of a lot of regulation to get us back up on our feet faster. But I'd like to talk to you about that later. I want to ask you this one last question. We could not get how Boris Johnson was treated, no matter how many people we called, no matter what we did. No one in the press in the UK, nobody in the press here was allowed to see. And my theory is because private doctors were probably called and involved. Do you find that to be reasonable or not?
I don't think so. I think it's just perhaps surprising cultural difference that he's not our head of state. He's just head of government, and in that sense, he's not quite so much public property for the media when it comes to personal life. We have. I think in the media in the UK just held the line on medical issues. So, I mean, I remember I was a reporter in Washington in the 1980s, and I remember, these press conferences about the insides of Ronald Reagan's intestines. Which were quite surprising to me at the time. So I think it's as it were, self-restraint by the media, rather than some sinister reason why they don't want to tell us because it's a story that would embarrass the National Health Service. But I might be wrong about that. I personally don't know anything. I mean, I know Boris, he's an old friend, but I've not, of course, spoken to him during this. And he was extremely ill. We know that. And it was a very, very worrying time for those of us who greatly admire him. And for everybody else too, because he is the leader of our government and our country, and we are a bit leaderless at the moment. We are waiting for him to get better enough to be able to particularly lead us into the exit from lockdown. So we need him better quickly. We were told that he was not put on a ventilator, that he didn't get that bad, right. But we now know from other reports that ventilators seem to be not helping. Indeed, they might even be making things worse for some patients. So perhaps he was not put on a ventilator because they realized that it might make it worse.
Matt, thank you so much. The author of How Innovation Works. You can find him at mattridley.com or therationaloptimist.com. Look for his blog and his latest book coming out next month. Thank you so much, Matt Ridley.